Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing fantastic. So, in this interesting book by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he's gotten into a very interesting section here for us that we can dive into. And it has to do with the names of Allah. There's two of them here. So, Al Rahman and Al Rahim. He starts with this. The most merciful Al Rahim is the name from the names which are exclusive to Allah alone and are not used in reference to anyone else. The meaning of this name is the one who possesses infinite mercy. I thought that was interesting because I didn't realize no one else could have that as their title. And maybe that's up to interpretation, I don't know. Maybe some people believe you can, but I just found that interesting because it's the first time I've heard that you cannot attribute this reference to anyone other than Allah. So, very, very interesting. And again, Al-Rahman, the most merciful, one who possesses infinite mercy. And one cool example is if you just think about how many times we mess up and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us so many chances to make up for that. The next one was the bestower of mercy, Al-Rahim, in the name which refers to Allah, the mighty and majestic, but also may be used to refer to other than Him. So notice, you can use Al-Rahim to refer to something other than Allah, but not Al-Rahman. Oh, maybe because no one else possesses infinite mercy, right? Because here you notice the bestower. Someone can bestow mercy on you by the permission of Allah, but no one possesses infinite mercy. And if you say you do, no you don't. Because there are unforgivable things that you won't have mercy for. The meaning of this name is the one who bestows his mercy upon others. So the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, is the one who possesses infinite mercy, while the bestower of mercy, Al-Rahim, is the one who bestows his mercy upon others. So, when these two names are mentioned together, the meaning of the bestower of mercy, Al-Rahim, becomes the one whose mercy extends to whomever he wills from his servants, just as he mentions in his statement in Surah Al-Ankabut 29:21. He punishes whomever he wills and bestows mercy upon whomever he wills, and unto him you will all be returned. So notice this. The name of the bestower of mercy and the most merciful, Al-Rahman, we might ask ourselves, well, where do we get those names from? If we just look at that ayat in Ankabut 29:21, we see that the bestowing of mercy upon whomever and the execution of wrath, or the jurisdiction of mercy or wrathful justice, is solely in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from that you can see Allah's attributes. Through the names we see the attributes. Found this quite interesting. So once you look at that ayat, you're like, hey, yeah, I can see it. You can see how the bestower of mercy, Al-Rahim, and the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, makes sense because whoever he wills. So we maybe say he doesn't deserve mercy, but Allah knows what we do not know, because Allah has seen what we have not seen, and with that knowledge can do actual justice, even if we ourselves can't comprehend why that person got justice. It's just awesome. And the meaning of the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, is the possessor of great mercy. So another one, Ar-Rahman, it's not just infinite mercy, but great mercy. So infinite denotes a sense of sort of extension, and great denotes sort of a degree in power. It's really quite interesting. I found this highly educational. Now he has another cool part over here where he talks about knowledge, al-ilm, which I think you'll find also interesting. He says here, Knowledge, al-ilm, is to be comprehended with certainty, the reality of something. I like that, because it's true. When you have knowledge about something, you fully comprehend it and you're certain of the reality of it. If there's doubts, you may not be as certain, but you're still comprehending. It's really cool. Comprehension can be subdivided into 6 categories. The first, knowledge which was previously defined. The second, a slight subtle ignorance, al-jahl al-basi, which is the inability of comprehending something completely. So here we have previously defined. Now we have the inability of comprehending something completely. The third, he says, compounded ignorance, al-jahl al-muraka, which is to be comprehended as something in a manner contrary to its reality. Now this is cool because it reminds me of how some people can twist certain information out of its mode, and they have taken a totally incomprehensive meaning from it that doesn't reflect reality, right? It's called compounded ignorance because it consists of 2 types of ignorance: an individual's ignorance of the truth and his ignorance and thinking that he knows while he does not know. That's interesting. So compounded ignorance, and it's called that way when someone is ignorant of the truth, when they could be told that they don't know it, but instead they think that they do know when they don't know. It's like a double layer. So it is compounded in that way. The fourth, misunderstanding, al-wahm, which is to grasp something with a type of comprehension which actually opposes that which is understood to be more correct. Now this is cool because you get to see the reasoning process here. So if you misunderstood something, you comprehended it in a way that is opposing to what is the correct way. So the goal is to find the correct one. If you haven't found it, you've misunderstood, which we basically get that, right? Misunderstanding denotes an incorrect result of what happened, an incorrect conclusion, right? That will show you that you've misunderstood. But I just like the way he says it. The fifth, doubt, al-shak, which is to grasp something with a type of comprehension which is possibly correct and possibly incorrect. So notice the nuance here. The doubt is like possibly correct, possibly incorrect. You're not sure. Now contrast that to when he said that the second subtle ignorance is the inability of comprehending something completely. So you see the complete ignorance, and then you see the sort of possibly correct, possibly incorrect. The sixth, inference, al-zan, which is to grasp something with a type of comprehension which is more likely to be true because that which opposes it is held to be weak or questionable. Now this is interesting because it shows you when you're measuring something, you're measuring your how do I put it? Your reasoning process. You've comprehended it and you're like, well, the opposite one doesn't seem as much evidence. I kind of grasp this one because it's more reasonable. It's more likely to be true. Sounds like how they do, how you would extract or interpret law from something, right? You're like, is this what they meant or is this what they meant? And then you go with what seems to be the stronger position. Knowledge can be divided into 2 categories: inevitable, duhururi, and theoretical, nadhari. I like that because theoretical is like could, you're speculating, you're contemplating, reasoning. You may not have been able to see it tested out yet, but it's a theory, right? Now inevitable sounds like, well, it just can't be avoided, right? This is so sure that it's almost like chess in a way. He continues, The type of knowledge which is inevitable, the is to understand the subject matter to the extent that an individual is forced to a specific conclusion without having to formulate theories. Now this is cool because forced to a specific conclusion without formulating theories. That something is so concise. So that's the inevitable one, the hurry. When you think about it, if it's inevitable, you've come to a specific conclusion and you didn't have to formulate theories. That is a very fast-paced, like, bullseye mark on information, on knowledge. Or cite evidences like the knowledge that the fire is hot, for example. Yeah, good point. Theoretical knowledge, nadhari, necessitates referring to proofs and evidences like the knowledge that a person's intentions, niyah, is obligatory and must be present when making ablution, wudu. Now this is cool because he just gave us a really cool example of theoretical knowledge, nadhari, about how the intention is, the niyah is there, it's obligatory when you're doing wudu, and they have to refer to proofs within the hadith, right? So like, what's your evidences? They cite why they derive such a ruling. Whereas with nadari, it's like, there's inevitable, you came to such a open conclusion, a forced specific conclusion, you didn't have to formulate a theory or cite evidences. You just could plainly see it's like right there. That's like so clear cut. So he did just a great job here on showing us the differences between knowledge, how it can be in these two categories of inevitable and theoretical. I like that because it's concise and it makes sense. And you're like, hey, that's a good point, right? So very cool how he explained what knowledge is, and it's to really comprehend something with certainty and the reality of something. Because remember, he gave the fifth doubt was doubt, al-shak, which is when you're like, possibly, maybe yes, possibly, maybe no. And then the sixth was the inference, al-zan, so you would see which one is more likely to be true, and you would see that which opposes is more questionable, right? And knowledge, another type that's previously defined. And then remember he mentioned, compounded ignorance, where you're wrong, but then you also think you're right. And then when there's this slight subtle ignorance, it's like you have the inability of comprehending something completely. Kind of like, that's how I am with math. So, yeah, it's just amazing. I think it's very cool. I think you just look at it in a very interesting way and think how he laid it out for us. What do you think?